Now it's time for Spot on Sports. Here's your host, Mike Trezza.
Order the man we call Johnny Sticks, John Santamaria. John, how are you this evening?
Good evening, guys. How are you?
Great. Fantastic. So let's talk about the Islanders, John. A couple really interesting wins last week of really a couple different types for the Islanders.
Yes, it was certainly an interesting week. No one better performance than from Matt Barzal. Obviously, that was the game on Thursday against the Capitals where they scored a touchdown and completed a two-point conversion, 8-4. The one area of concern from last week, if you want to say any, was probably the play of Semyon Varlamov from goal, letting in some soft goals. The Islanders had to do a little bit more offense, but then you go to Saturday, 3-2 shootout game. They had a 2-0 lead. You don't like giving those extra points up, but Ilya Sorokin fought through it. Young rookie, you know you're going to see some growing pains from there. So that's one you could really push to the side and be like, okay, it happens. They won the game. They got the 2 points. And in this kind of season, it is what it is. You're playing everybody a lot. But when you get the whether it's a 2-0 or a 2-1 outcome, you're still a plus when it comes to the points. And right now, that's what matters with under 20 games to go in the regular season.
Yeah, John, you stepped ahead and you caught me exactly what I was going to say. When you're playing these teams over and over again to try to evaluate consistency, on the ice, if you're looking at the wins, like you're saying, or just the overall play, I guess so. But can you look ahead, or how can you project out? And I know we've spoken about this before. How can you project out what this team's going to look like against other teams they haven't seen, or just the other conferences? We like what we see on the ice again, but they're playing these same teams over and over again. How easy or difficult is that going to be to do?
It's certainly going to be a challenge along the way. But one thing we have seen, and let's go back because obviously we haven't been here since Anders Lee got hurt and was lost for the season. So one of the things that we have seen Barry Trotz do, he's mixed and matched the replacement left wing on that line. He hasn't broken up the B line, the Bo, Brock Nelson, Eberle line. Let me think of it. Bo, Brock, and Daly. He has not broken them. I was thinking of Eberle for a second, but no, he hasn't broken those guys up. But what he's done, it's been unique, and it's been on a matchup based. And I think that's the way you're going to strategize things. You've seen Leo Komarov play there. People are not a fan of that one, but it has worked. He's contributed on that top line. We've seen Matt Martin get power play minutes. We know his father-in-law, Boomer Esiason, is very pleased with some of those results, even though it's for the Islanders. But the point is, you're seeing different guys go into different situations. And then that approach is to what we're going to get into probably before this is over, and that's 6 days from now, the trading deadline, and what could possibly be.
Yeah, you mentioned that Saturday game, John. That was a 3-2 win over Philly. As you mentioned, the Islanders were up 2-0 in that game. They let up a goal with, I think it was 30 seconds or so to go in that game. Had to go into the overtime period, which was exciting. Had to go into the shootout. Nobody scored in the shootout until finally Barzal got up there. And Barzal's just been on a tear for the Islanders.
Barzal had some week. And just imagine what he's got planned for tonight. Capitals again, wants some more offense. We don't know and that's the thing. You see the Capitals, you don't know what you're going to get from them defensively and in goal. They have a very young goaltending core because let's remind everybody, Henrik Lundqvist, the former Ranger goalie, was supposed to play for them. He had open heart surgery, so he had to take this season off. We'll talk about him another time, but hopefully that'll lead for his own. Hopefully his health is all good and all that. You'd like to see him come back, but maybe retirement might be the best idea for him. But that led to an inconsistent performance in goal. They have a veteran in Craig Anderson who is certainly capable of playing those minutes, but the point is you just don't know what you're going to get on a night in, night out with the Capitals in goal, and the same goes for their defense.
John, talking about trade rumors again, we're kind of circling back to that. One name I've seen come up on the Islander side, perhaps going someplace, Kiefer Bellows, young player, a lot of promise. Again, these rumors are a dime a dozen, but his name seems to keep coming up, time after time, coming back to the Islanders in some way. I've seen, Palmieri from the Devils. Is there any younger player right now who you say, you know what, is completely untradeable? We're not, besides, I'm sure Oliver Wahlstrom, but some of these younger guys who haven't played quite the role yet. Anybody who you would say absolutely we're not giving up, or right now for the rate package, we're going to ship them out?
It's interesting how that will all unfold. One, I feel like this is not the year to make a major trade. One, you have the flat cap. Two, and we'll talk more about this in July. This July is going to be as crazy of a summer as transactions in the NHL because you have the expansion draft with Seattle. So you need to be careful how much you give up because you might need. So let's use if they move Kyle Palmieri is an unrestricted free agent this summer. You give up one of those second round picks you got when you had to trade Devon Toews last summer. That's one last piece. You might have to give up your first round pick to the Kraken in order to protect certain guys you want to give up, or if you could convince them to get rid of the Andrew Ladd contract. So I'm Lou Lamoriello. You listened, but you're very cautious. If not, I won't be surprised if he makes a trade, but it also won't surprise me if the Islanders say, let's stay put, let's get through what we have, let's evaluate our guys, and if we have to use that first round pick, the idea is, okay, we're going to hopefully make the playoffs, maybe win a round or two. That'll be a pick in, say, the mid to late 20s. They have 2 second-round picks, and second-round picks aren't terrible in hockey, so you still might be able to get quality players you like there. Let's hold on to that first-round pick to possibly protect the major pieces of our roster come the Kraken expansion draft on July 29th.
And just for our viewers who may not know, John, this coming Monday, the 12th, is the trade deadline in the NHL. I wanted to ask you about Sorokin because that Saturday night game, it was Sorokin in goal for the Islanders. Talk to me about his progress. What have you seen from him that you're happy with? What have you seen from him that might concern you in some way?
I think he's been excellent. And obviously, it is a short sample size. It's a short season. But I think he has really grown. The Islanders have a terrific coaching staff when it comes to goalies. Their director of goaltending, Mitch Korn, is one of the best goaltending coaches in the game. So the one thing that this staff does well, you see this in a few places. I've seen this over the years with Dave Tippett. He's the head coach of the Edmonton Oilers now. They put these defensive structures in place, and they train the goalies to succeed. It works for Varlamov. It works for Sorokin. As far as Varlamov, he's let in some soft goals lately. Maybe it's just positioning, minor things to be tweaked. I think Sorokin on the other side, he just may have to, and he's still learning the pressure about maybe having to do a little bit more late in games. Maybe he wouldn't have allowed 2 goals in late in the third period if we talk, say, 4 months from now. But these are things I think he will learn with time. That's why I wasn't upset about the game going into the shootout on Saturday. I think that's what you expect from a young goaltender. But at the end of the day, he finished the deal and he won the game. And he just stressed out.
Great, John. You know what? And overall, this is a very exciting night for us. And Trez, before we were talking about this, going live here, anybody, we're monitoring feedback tonight. So right now, we'd like to say we have Diana, Nora Jean, John, bringing in Patricia. Thank you very much for watching us, and anybody else, feel free to add your comments, anything you'd like us to bring up with John or maybe touch on tonight. Once again, from Drake Media Studios, from the Empire, here we are tonight, and this is, we're just, again, super excited to have your feedback as well. And when we have somebody like John on who's so knowledgeable about the Islanders and talking draft picks and the expansion draft, that's why we bring in these special guys. Mike and I talk hockey, but without someone like John, we're not nearly as good. And talking about that Seattle Kraken again, these teams that are coming in, it's amazing when you look back, John, a couple of years back with Vegas making the finals, immediately. There's very little parity. I mean, of course, you see a team like Buffalo this year who's really, really down, and they're kind of a victim of circumstance. Although they really, I'm sure you would agree with me, they are not a talented hockey team, but very hard to dig out at this point. But coming back to your point about not mortgaging the farm and really just kind of staying in the line, I think that's what Lou Lamoriello has done so well for so many years, and why Islander fans such as myself were so thrilled to have this guy come in because you know what? There's buzz, and it's not like in the past where we felt, we have got to make some kind of move just to salvage a chance at the playoffs. Not necessary.
No, and obviously, I don't know if you guys have been there. You just go visit the Prudential Center. Just look at the numbers that are retired up there. 30, 4, 3, 27. Those of you who are hockey fans out there, you know who I'm talking about. 26 is up in the rafters. All homegrown players from New Jersey.
But you know what's funny, John? You mentioned the Devils. I did something Sunday night because it was the only game on. I flipped on the Devils for a few minutes. Did they really say that the Capitals beat them 8 times in a row this year? Did I really hear that right, John?
Yes.
Wow.
But the one thing I will say about that, you know what? I will say one thing about that, though. We were talking about the Sabres. When you look at the 2 bottom teams in that group, the Sabres and the Devils, at least when you watch the Devils and when they play the Islanders, you know you're going to get a good effort from them. They are well coached. They're a team on the rise. They also signed a goalie over the summer, Corey Crawford, who was going to be on the team, but he had to retire too. He had a history of concussions. So they were dealt with some very difficult circumstances, but they come and play hard. And they're trying to, if you want to say, maybe not fully follow the Lou model, but try and bring that next core of guys. And they have a nice young defenseman in Ty Smith, who was their first-round pick this past year, who is excellent on the power play. I'm a big fan of Nico Hischier. I think Jack Hughes has a lot of promise. They also, obviously, talking Long Island, Kyle Palmieri is from Smithtown, I believe. So a local guy. They've had Keith Kincaid, who used to be on the team. He's on the Rangers now, backup goalie. So they're building. And I think they have the right approach to it. They're not trying to do too much, and they're trying to just maybe try and bring the magic back from the 90s that we remember when the Devils were winning cups.
There's another team in town, John, that we've kind of given the short shrift to, and I'm starting to hear it from some of my Ranger fan buddies. Right now the Rangers are sitting at 39. They've got both Philly at 41 and Boston at 44 in front of them. Realistically, can the Rangers do enough with the rest of the season to get themselves back into the playoff picture and get number 4 in the East?
I don't see why not. I'm not sold on the Flyers right now the way they're playing. The Bruins have been up and down. I think we could all agree this division, playing with this group of teams, has not been easy for them. Yaroslav Halak, one of their goaltenders, was placed in COVID protocol. So they're going to have some challenges coming away. So I don't see why not. The Rangers have played hard. They're starting to really feel their groove. They're getting healthy. And anything is possible right now. There is no reason why they shouldn't be counted out. And from there, take it game by game. But the Islanders are playing them twice this weekend. You can't take the Rangers lightly.
No, definitely not, John. And you know what? As you were mentioning before about Buffalo and the differences between a team like Buffalo and the Devils and also the Rangers, when you watch the Rangers, as you mentioned, they're starting now to really kind of find their system. I think it took a while with this year's group to find it. The Devils have that system. When you watch the Sabres, they're just kind of skating around, just trying to make something happen. So Devils and Rangers definitely teams to be wary of, and you're not going to get an off night against them. Buffalo, again, it's the National Hockey League. But that's a team I'm not going to fear. But the Devils got to look out for, and I never take the Rangers lightly, especially now, going into this part of the season where they're starting to click a little bit. The consistency, as you mentioned, is starting to come. Can they run off, 8 out of 10 here? Remains to be seen. Hopefully, some of those 8 wouldn't be against my Islanders. Again, I am biased in that respect. But when the teams are good, when the Rangers, Devils, and Islanders are all playing well, I mean, it's to everybody's benefit as hockey fans in this area.
Yeah, before you jump in, John, let me just respond to Mike
one
for a second.
One thing I don't think that I would be nice to see in this area. I don't think we've ever seen all 3 of them make the playoffs in the same year, at least in the 30 years I'm around.
That's true. But, just to piggyback onto what Mike was saying, You know what, Mike? It's a shame that thing with Panarin had to happen in the middle of the season. I felt like the Ranger offense was just starting to click, and Panarin is such a catalyst for that team. I mean, he's a magician with that puck. He's not like Barzal. Barzal relies on speed and stick handling ability, but Panarin, I mean, you watch his passes, and they are boom, just right on the money, John.
He makes his teammates better. And you definitely saw a difference with the power play. But I think it's a little bit more, too, than just that with what's clicking for the Rangers. They're finally getting some consistent play in goal because between Shesterkin, who was out with injury, and then you have Grigoriev, who was up and down, and then no offense, Keith Kincaid, not a guy you want to fully depend on every night, but he had his ups and downs. So I think it was more the play in the net, getting everybody back. They had some injuries on defense, so it's just a matter of they really haven't had their whole group together the whole season.
Yeah, John, I hate to shift gears on you, but Mike and I are going to jump into football in the next segment. Of course, we're both Giant fans, so we're going to have a lot to say about what they've done this offseason. But obviously the big story of the last day or two was the Jets moving on from Sam Darnold. Now, I know you had said in one of our early podcasts you wanted to give Sam another year. What's your reaction to the trade? Surprised? Unhappy? Give us your reaction.
Well, when you look at it at the end of the day, you kind of had a feeling it was coming. You didn't want it to happen. I think that offense that Mike LaFleur is going to run, the offensive coordinator, like we said, what you see in Green Bay, what you see in Tennessee, quarterback-friendly offense. But to be fair, Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, they did not pick this quarterback. So they felt, and I was thinking about this earlier. I looked at what the Bears did about a year ago this time, not picking the 50-year option up on Mitch Trubisky. What did they do? They go 8-8. He got benched for a little while, missed the playoffs. They opted not to re-sign him. He left. They got nothing for him. He's now the backup in Buffalo. I don't think the way Joe Douglas operates, I think if he wasn't ready to commit more than a year to him, he would have been willing to trade the second pick. He came out and said that. If the pick was a little lower, if it wasn't the second pick, he would have been willing to stay with him. But to be fair, it probably would have been a difficult path either way because it's not like there is a standout quarterback coming out of this year's college draft. We don't know yet. Obviously, a lot changed, but you wanted to make sure you pick your guy now. And I think this had to be done. Yes, it's unfortunate that Sam had to get traded, that he didn't get another chance, but it came down to the finances and the salary cap, especially, too, since the cap number went down.
All right, John. Listen, we're up against the break. We've got to run. Fantastic job by you as always. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you along the way, okay?
Good night.
And let's hope the Islanders are still in the same spot, if not better, the next time we talk to you.
That's right. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more right after this, right here on Spot on Sports.
Now back to Spot On Sports with Mike Trezza and Mike Guidone.
Welcome back, everyone, to Spot On Sports. Mike Trezza, Mike Guidone, from right here at Drake Media Studios, streaming live on Facebook. And thank you, Mike, for picking me up and me forgetting to mention that we want your comments live on Facebook, folks. Mike is monitoring your comments, so comment us live. Let us know what you think of the show. Comment about anything we might be talking about your favorite sport or your favorite team. This segment, we dive into NFL off seasons for both the Giants and the Jets. And then we start to talk about the beginning of this baseball season, Yankees and Mets. So let's get into it right now, Mike. I asked John in that first segment. By the way, we thank John Santamaria, Johnny Sticks, our hockey reporter, for joining us. I wanted to give him a chance to weigh in on the Darnold trade. What was your impression? Sixth-round pick this year, a number 2 and a number 4 to Carolina for Sam Darnold.
You know, a decent haul, I think. I would have liked to seen maybe this year a little something better coming back. But, honestly, what was the market at that point and what could you expect? 3 picks, nothing really extremely late in the draft. So, yeah, we'll take a 6-rounder this year. If you're a Jets fan or if you're Jets front office, my biggest concern going forward now is, all right, obviously you're going to draft a quarterback. And, it's pretty apparent where they're going with that. But who is your backup? Who is going to be maybe somebody, who can step in at the beginning or, who's going to be capable? Most of the really capable guys, I mean, I would have loved to seen Ryan Fitzpatrick come back but would he really want to be another bridge guy? Although is at this point in his career, is he anything other than a bridge guy?
And does Zach Wilson want Ryan Fitzpatrick hanging over his shoulder?
Well, he's got
he makes couple picks.
It's a great point. He's got to have somebody there, but you're figuring, all right, now Darnold's gone, Zach Wilson's coming in, and he's going to have as much time as necessary. Now, are the New York Jets fan base going to be patient with that? Should they be patient with that? Boy, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes right now being a general manager, but it's a gutsy pick.
But just looking at the deal and breaking it down, Mike, I think it was kind of smart. If you're only going to get a 6 this year, make sure you get a 4 and a 2 next year because they figure, hey, you know what? This coming season, you're going to have to throw Zach Wilson in there. He's going to have to take his lumps. Now, again, they've improved some of the skill positions, but I haven't really seen them do anything on the offensive line to shore that up. And so, he might have some of the same problems we've seen from Sam Darnold over the last couple of years. And then going into that next offseason, you get an extra 4, you get an extra 2, and that's where, if you're Joe Douglas, you make your money.
There's been a lot of talk also. Who is responsible for Sam Darnold being in the position Sam Darnold is in right now? Is it him as a player? Is it the coaching staff? Is it the owner? You feel badly for the guy. Is he as good as he was advertised before? Is he the quarterback that's very up and down, that maybe the game's a little too fast for him? You hear that as well. So do you pin it on him? Do you pin it on the coaching, which was absolutely, obviously horrendous the last couple of years?
Horrendous.
But who brought that coaching staff in? Former GMs, ownership. Who is ultimately responsible, do you think, Mike, for Sam Darnold being in the spot he was?
Listen, I think it's a combination. It was a perfect storm, not to cop out. Sam himself didn't play well. And one of the things, Mike, that I think people are not really talking about, Sam was picked too early. And I don't just mean too early in the draft. He came out after his sophomore year. I think he could have really benefited from another year in college, another year as a starting quarterback in college, real skill development, real player development, real increase in confidence. The Jets drafted him at 20 years old. You're not ready to play in the NFL at 20 years old, especially the quarterback position. He played badly. He had terrible coaching. I mean, I don't want to pile on a dead body, but Adam Gase was as bad as it gets. I mean, he was Rich Kotite reincarnated.
And has a second shot to be a head coach in the NFL. Not only does he does however you want to term it in Miami, but then gets a second shot in New York Jets with a young quarterback, like you said, who needs that ultimate development. He must have had one heck of an interview.
Yeah. Joe Douglas, I mean, again, he has to have a great offseason. Some of the acquisitions he's made to give Zach Wilson some more weapons at the skill positions, Corey Davis at wide receiver, Keelan Cole at wide receiver, and Robert Saleh, the new head coach, wants to build a defensive line that's sort of reminiscent of the one that he had in San Francisco. To that end, he's brought in Carl Lawson at defensive end, Sheldon Rankins at defensive tackle, LaMarcus Joyner at defensive back. I mean, are any of those names going to make you really sit up and take notice?
Nothing really exciting, but again, I think free agency in the NFL is really won by that solid signings. I mean, we're going to talk about the Giants here in a minute, and there's one particularly I'm very excited about with the Giants, which I'm sure you can probably guess. But it really is. It's those background guys. And now through this draft, you're going to get your, hopefully, quarterback of the future, your franchise guy. But again, not a 20-year-old coming out, as you said.
Right.
You have some experience, at least from the college level.
But again, the way the deal was structured with Carolina, I think it makes more sense to have the higher picks at the back end after Zach Wilson already gets a year under his belt.
It's a great point.
Yeah. And so, Joe Douglas, to me, has had a pretty good offseason. He's held the cards very, very close to the vest. And Joe Douglas has been, a good poker player up till this point. Obviously, everybody knows he's picking Zach Wilson, but he had to unload Sam before the draft day. Otherwise, I think he would have gotten less.
So, Mike, checking in with us from Facebook, we have Declan. And Declan says, agreed, Trezza, because Sam Darnold would have ranked 1-2 in that 2019 draft class with Kyler, Daniel Jones, and Drew Lock. So we appreciate that input, Declan.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's focus in on the Giants for a minute, Mike. Here's the funny part, is that you and I are both Giant fans. This is one of the two teams that both of us share in terms of rooting.
For the good of the show, should I become a Jet fan, do you think?
No, I wouldn't wish that on you.
I have some friends, God bless them, and it's odd for a person like me. I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago who was asking me about my sports and different things, and I said, yeah, I'm a Mets fan, and they went, oh, you must be a Jet fan. I said, no, I'm a Giant fan. I said,
know.
Mets,
that is a little strange. But you and I are both Giants, and the thing is that we've spent less time on the Giants than any team in the New York pro area. And the reason for that, it was really more or less timing. Mike and I started a couple weeks after that Sunday night fiasco with Doug Peterson down in Philly. Don't get me started on that. But you know what? What intrigues me, Mike? I cannot believe in the New York media and with New York fans just how much guff Dave Gettleman takes, and I don't understand it, Mike. Now, if you want to go back a couple years, you want to knock Dave Gettleman for picking Saquon Barkley with the number 2 overall pick, I can understand that. If you want to knock him for drafting Daniel Jones too high, even though obviously he loved Daniel Jones and could see potential in him. All right, I can understand that. But Dave Gettleman, to me, had a great offseason last year. He took that defense from absolute garbage. I mean, this is me, a lifelong Giant fan, saying this.
Absolutely.
And here's what he did. Leonard Williams, first of all, everybody absolutely laughed at him for even getting Leonard Williams in here. Now we see what kind of player Leonard Williams has become. Blake Martinez, James Bradbury, Logan Ryan. Basically, one guy at each level of the defense completely turned that defense around last year.
Without a doubt. And why is he catching so much flack, as you were saying? It's a great question. I think, again, in New York, and I hate to say this over and over again because the patience, New York fans don't have patience. The market doesn't bear it out. But you can't be switching general managers and coaches every 2-3 years.
No,
I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And when you have Gettleman had a decent pedigree, and you're seeing, like you said, Leonard Williams. I love that kind of thing. Here's a guy who you see it so many times. They don't perform well in another team. They get a chance. One of two things happens. They either flame out or, boy, they come out and guy was a top 5 defensive player. I mean, unbelievable.
And here are people giving Dave Gettleman grief for re-signing and extending Leonard Williams 3 years, $63 million, Mike. And here I'm reading a report the other day, and this guy graded that move out of all the Giants offseason moves an A for Leonard Williams for 3 years for $63 million. So let's look at some of the other moves the Giants have made. Reggie Ragland at linebacker 1 year from the Detroit Lions. Let's look at some of the stuff on offense. Devontae Booker, that's a small move. That's 2 years, $5.5 million. But let's get into the big moves he's made on offense in the last couple weeks. Kyle Rudolph, 2 years, $14 million. Now, Giant fans like you and me, Mike, and others are really, really down on Evan Ingram.
Yes.
And what, to you, is Kyle Rudolph's role going to be on this team?
Boy, flip a coin right there. But they're not bringing him in here, and he's not coming unless he's playing. I mean, this is a guy. He can block, can catch passes. Also, great locker room presence. To me, that was something. And again, Galladay we'll get to in a second. That I was super excited about because, coming with the stats and the background of that kind of player, that's what I think the Giants need. What's his role going to be? Listen. If
is he ahead of Ingram in your mind right now?
I'm going to say no, but I think that the leash is going to be very, very short. I mean, incredibly short. Because, correct me if I'm wrong. Was Ingram? Was he a Pro Bowler this year?
He was a Pro Bowl.
Right.
I don't know how, Mike.
I mean,
he cost the Giants almost single-handedly the game against Philly with that drop. He almost cost the Giants a chance to make the playoffs on the last week of the season with a drop pass that you or I catch that turned into a pick and almost turned that game completely around. And I was spitting mad watching that play. So I guess the offseason acquisition you're referring to that you're really excited about is the one for John Ross at wide receiver. 1 year, $2.5 million, Mike?
Not quite the one I was looking for. But that is, listen, if he catches passes, I'm excited.
Kenny Golladay, 4 years, $72 million. And even going out and getting a big receiver, a real potential bona fide, legit number one, Dave Gettleman is taking crap for that because people are saying he overpaid for Kenny Golladay. What's your view?
Who don't people say that in the star level?
You paid this guy too much money.
Everybody gets paid too much money. I mean, you could talk in other sports. I mean, Francisco Lindor, we'll get to that, talk about money. I mean, that's just insane. But in football, you're going to overpay for this level of talent.
Oh, there's no question.
Yeah, and you have to. I mean, for those type of guys, there's only a few. Now, will he come to New York and be a bust? I mean, Lord, I hope not. He shows no signs of that. I mean, he's performed before. Detroit was a terrible team, but he still, he came to play. That's the one thing I got to say about players from Detroit. And Matt Stafford, who has gone. He was suiting up. He's got broken bones. They're not in the playoffs. Galladay's coming to play late in the season. So when it was him who was signed by the Giants, I said, now I'm feeling good. But yes, did you pay him a lot? You certainly did. But
you have to.
How else are you going to get that guy here?
Yeah, exactly. And they haven't had that legit number one who's a big guy like that since, dare I say it, Plaxico Burress.
It's just big plaques. That's right. And you know what? He came with some Plaxico Burress. Now came with some baggage. And
he left with more baggage.
But in the meantime, what did he do? Boy, he performed and big Super Bowl for us. But yeah, Galladay's coming in, big numbers, no baggage whatsoever, or hopefully whatever it is buried somewhere in Detroit. But who else are we bringing in? Nobody. I'm excited, and let's get him on the field, and let's go.
NFL Draft, April 29th to May 1st, folks. Mike and I are going to switch gears right now and get into the beginning of the baseball season. Yanks now 2-2, Mike. They dropped their opener. Plenty of chances in that game. Cole pitched great. I mean, he wasn't DeGrom-like, but Cole pitched well.
Back in the days of George Steinbrenner, opening game loss, would he have been going crazy?
He would have been very displeased by that game.
I'm sure he would.
Cole Now, again, you can make the opposite argument of the Met argument we're going to get to in a couple minutes, which is that maybe Aaron tried to squeeze a little extra time out of Cole on opening day, maybe kept him in a batter or two too long. Should he have taken Cole out with a 2-1 lead rather than giving up that second run? You can debate it back and forth. Cole has been a legitimate ace. I have no problem. If he stays in there, I have no problem if Boone takes him out. I'm not the second-guess guy who wants to, why'd you leave him in so low? Why'd you take him out so
Are you thinking about what we're going to be talking about with the Mets with DeGrom last night after one game?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So, listen, they dropped that game. They had plenty of good chances early in that, or I should say late in that game, ninth inning. Golden opportunity. The big hitters came up. They couldn't get it done in the big
Booze
spot.
for Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah, on opening day.
On opening day.
After 5 homers in 5 games in the playoffs the year before.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yankee fans are never going to give Stanton a break.
But he hit a ball, I believe it was last night, that has not landed yet.
Yes.
Now, he is what he is and as time goes on. But have you ever seen really anybody be able to pop consistent balls that far? I
know. The man is just a beast. But Yankee fans don't like him, Mike, and they're not going to like him. If you don't like him after last year, you're not going to like him.
Yeah.
So, I felt – here's the way I felt. I felt like the second game, Corey Kluber returned to prior form. You and I talked about him in the offseason, some of the startling record he had back in, from 14 to, let's say, 2019. He looked really good in that first
He did look sharp.
I did not understand. The move I did not understand was rushing Domingo Germán out there for that third start. That didn't make sense to me, Mike. I mean, here you've got a guy who's coming off a year not pitching. He's coming off having to rehabilitate his image with Yankee fans.
Absolutely.
Based upon the domestic abuse issues, which, again, I want to separate those from performance on the field. I just didn't understand why it was necessary to shove Germán out there on the third game of the season. Why not hold him back until Monday or Tuesday when you're facing Baltimore? You've got a night game. You've got fewer people in the stands and possibly a smaller crowd.
That's a great question, Mike. You know what? Analytics, perhaps? I mean, which I hate that word again, and people our age, I think, mostly do. But who knows? Maybe the matchups, or maybe it was a matter of, we just want to get him out there as soon as possible, rip the Band-Aid off. I don't know. It seemed rushed to me as well, and I agree with you 100%. Bring him on a little bit later when, against an Oriole team, had a little bit bigger taste of the season. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is maybe the matchups, or who knows.
And, especially when you look at it after the performance that Montgomery gave last night. Montgomery was terrific last night. Why not him in the number 3 spot if you're going to choose between him and Germán? Now, again, I realize that that's second guessing. And as you mentioned, thank you to Giancarlo for putting them up 6-0 early so I could go to the Gonzaga game and the Met game and the Knicks-Nets game, which we're going to get to in a little while.
All right, so Declan, once again.
Declan, come on, baby.
Our man Declan, we appreciate it. All right. Aaron Boone wanted to pamper Jordan Montgomery and Jamison Tynan because they're both coming off Tommy John surgery.
Okay.
All right. Hey, listen.
It didn't make sense to me from a logistical standpoint.
Anything's possible. And you know me as a Met fan, I'm looking for that smoking gun with the Yankees.
And let's get into that Met game last night.
Oh, boy.
Mike, because I've heard it all day from Met fans,
geez.
both in person and on different shows. They're already unhappy that Jake left that game after 6 innings. Listen, Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher in baseball. Hey, let me say it again for my Met fan friends. Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher in baseball. However, I'm not going to second-guess Luis Rojas. On opening night, Mike, you're down in Philadelphia. It's a 45-degree night. Right. It's opening night. I mean, listen, I understand that all these players, especially pitchers, are pampered. That's true. However, it's a long season. You cannot get Jacob deGrom hurt on opening night, especially when right now Marcus Stroman is my number 2 starter. And you want to look at the guys we have behind him? I mean –
and you've invested so much in your bullpen.
You want to talk about David Peterson? I thought that was the old Eagles coach for a minute.
Peterson, yes. Well, we'll see about him. But no, you're 100% right. You're not already. Oh, let him pitch until he wants to come out. I don't think he was particularly concerned nor worried about anybody's opinion of him pitching 6 innings and coming out. That's what he should be doing at this point. Now, 7, I don't know, but you're right. It's a cold evening.
But the 7th inning wasn't a problem.
No,
it was
wasn't.
the 8th inning
exactly.
that was a problem.
And that's why, you know what? I mean, second guess until the cows come home. But cold night, they haven't played in a bunch of days. They missed an entire opening series to begin the year. So are your pitches sharp? I don't think DeGrom even looked particularly dominant, although he's keeping that lineup to no runs. Was he Jacob DeGrom at the end of last season? Hopefully he will be. But yeah, he did his deal. 6 innings, no runs. Thanks. Go in, warm up, put some ice on the arm. Let's get the bullpen back out here. All right, and they imploded a little bit in the 8th inning. At least we're not looking at Diaz coming in the 9th with a 2-run lead and giving up a 3-run home, a walk-off. Then
you didn't even get that far.
Yeah, exactly. Then we can say, oh my God, the Mets. It's one game. And somebody even said to me, a really really good friend of mine who posts to a lot of the boards. They said the '86 Mets started 1-2.
Okay.
Now,
all right.
Now that's pulling something out right there, but it is. It's so early.
I mean, we take a look at it, and everybody wants to kill Aaron Loop. It wasn't Aaron Loop. It was actually Trevor May who screwed up that game. Aaron Loop came in, and yes, he hits Bryce Harper with a pitch, which honestly is not that bad a scenario right there.
I don't mind hitting Bryce Harper with a pitch.
Exactly. At least Harper is not doing damage in terms of driving in runs.
You're going to walk him, or you're going to throw one at him.
Exactly.
Not at his head, but
exactly.
Send a little message first game.
And then next play after that, he gets the guy to hit that little chopper down to third base. Your man Guillaume had just come in for defense.
Defensive purposes, yes.
Well, what was interesting about that play, Mike, is on the broadcast with Ronnie and Keith, they're sitting there acting like it was Guillaume's fault. But then as soon as they went to postgame, I stayed with it. And those guys on the postgame were talking about how it was McCann's fault. How did you see that play?
Well, it's easy to go to Guillaume because he is the late innings replacement right there and say it's got to be a perfect play. But I agree with. I think it was McCann. McCann, he did not look comfortable making that play. I think Guillaume made his decision. So you can you nitpick both of them? The easy thing is to say it's got to be Guillaume because it's got to be perfect. And I know I'm repeating myself, but McCann, he shoulders a lot of the blame.
You know what? I never caught Mike. I played a lot of first base, and my thing was this. If I have to come off the bag to save a guy moving up a base and I don't get the guy who hit the ball, I won't get the guy who hit the ball, and I'll keep the guy on base for moving up an extra base. We can apply that same thing there. I think that if McCann had been in better position, maybe with his right foot on the outside of the plate, he would have been able to stretch across. Now, again, with the glove on this hand, that's necessitating that you reach across and tag the guy, which is a much more difficult play.
Almost looked like he got caught by surprise that the ball was coming to him.
Oh, that's true. You didn't have to tag the guy. It was a forced play.
Yeah.
He was trying to make the double play, and so that's why so much haste on that play.
Right. And then the floodgates open, and then there you go.
Yeah, that was
But
it.
you know what? At least we come back, get a run, show a little fight.
It's true.
And again, I mean, we're talking about one game where I wish we had as many games as the Yankees have already. But Mets fans were just dying for anything. And, wherever they were watching, and I follow, I'm not a big social media guy with Twitter or whatever else, but Seven Line is a big New York Met fan base, and also they travel really well. So I kind of monitor them. And believe it or not, most of the Seven Line's like, let's just take it easy. Okay. No,
good.
It was a terrible game.
Voice of reason on social media. I can't believe it.
Terrible game, but we could have lost by 10. We're still counting it down to the next game. So,
exactly.
Long way to go.
When we come back, folks, Mike and I dig into the NBA locals, Knicks and Nets, and we also cover the Final Four. We're going to take a short break and be right back right after this on Spot on Sports.
Now back to Spot On Sports with Mike Trezza and Mike Guidone.
Welcome back, everyone, to Spot On Sports. Mike Trezza, Mike Guidone. We dig into Mike Guidone's favorite sport this segment, basketball. Knicks and Nets last night, Mike. Knicks had so many chances in that game, and no Harden for the Nets. Harden played about 4 minutes early in the game. I think I was still on the Yankee or Met game at that point. Didn't see Harden at all. Kevin Durant never plays anymore. Did he move out of the country? Where is Kevin Durant?
He's in the witness protection program.
My goodness. And still able to come away with a victory against the Knicks. Not trying to rub it in, but in a game that the Knicks really needed, Mike.
Absolutely. And just one thing, Trez, before we go, I'd like to recognize your buddy John Reynolds, who brought up, he said it wasn't a good throw, talking about the Mets game, but probably should have made the play. Thank you, John. I agree. And I think Mike agrees with you as well.
The can should have come off,
okay.
No question.
All right, but we're happy to have you guys on, and thanks for the comments. Keep them coming.
Yeah, please keep commenting us on Facebook, folks. Questions, comments, anything you want. Let us have it.
Most definitely. So getting into basketball. Okay, yes, my New York Knicks and the Nets. Great game for us to analyze. You mentioned Harden plays a couple of minutes, comes off. Kyrie does what Kyrie does. When
Drops
Kyrie
40 on you last night?
When Kyrie wants to do what Kyrie does, doing Kyrie things. So, once again, is he one of the greatest on-the-ball players making moves? You have to say yes. I mean, but he should not, on his own, win that game, even with Blake Griffin and whoever's with him now. I'm going to go back to the Knicks. Mike, each and every time we have met and talked about the New York Knicks, Emmanuel Quickley and Obi Toppin. Okay, their names have come up because of playing time. Now, I keep pushing Obi. I have no stick in the game with him. I have nothing. I just want to see a big guy with some energy play. Now, this is no joke. 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, he made a put back dunk in a game. I think it was in the first half. I should know this better, but I don't. But I'm going to tell you something. No less than 2 minutes later, on the New York Knicks Twitter feed, they have a picture of him putting it down. So they're getting excited about him. I think the only person that doesn't get excited about him is Tom Thibodeau. But, okay,
Can I stop you for a
You
second?
can.
Because I pulled up some stats for Obi Toppin, Mike. And I don't want to spoil your fun. He is at 48% field goal percentage, which is a nice thing.
Well, it should be.
You want to give me a 3-point field goal percentage for Obi Toppin?
Does he take 3-point? Has he taken any?
Yeah, unfortunately, he's taken too many.
All right, I'm going to say,
in my view,
I'm going to say 32%.
30.
All right, I'm in the ballpark.
30.
That's horrendous.
You know what? Here's my message to you, Obi. Stop shooting threes. Get your rear end under the basket, rebound the ball, stick back the ball, and be around the basket.
All right, so let's go to quickly. Why is Derrick Rose playing more minutes last night than Emmanuel Quickley?
Well,
I looked at the box score. I had to say, was he in foul trouble? Because I didn't see the game, honestly. I saw some highlights, and I have to admit that. I have to. Because, listen, folks, okay, we have a national championship basketball game going on. We have the New York Mets opener. We got the Yankees going on. So, listen, I would love to say I was in my room last night with my 5 monitors, like Mike,
Francesa style.
like Mike the Pope Francesa. I'm not quite on that level yet. I'm getting there. But listen, I went back and did at least as much homework as I can. Why is that dude not in the game?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, Mike. Derrick Rose had a great first half, and then he completely did a 180 in the second half. He disappeared. He pulled the disappearing act in the second half of that game. So you're right. To that extent, I'll agree with you. But we've talked a lot about the rotation at point guard. The guy we have not talked about, and I'm amazed we haven't talked about him, is R.J. Barrett. Now, R.J. Barrett, Mike, very interesting player, starting to come into his own. I pulled up some stats on R.J. 44% field goal percentage. That's a little bit low for a guy who shoots from as close in as he does. 36% from three-point and 73% from the foul line. Now, is RJ a very athletic kid? Is he growing into the role on the Knicks? Yes, all that's true, but all three of those stats have to get much, much better, Mike.
Absolutely. To me, the one that needs to improve the most and the quickest is the free throw shooting. Because, listen, the outside shooting, the threes, again, he's not a three-point shooter. He's shooting threes because it's the NBA, and that's what NBA players do of his size. And I'm sure he has the green light when he's open. So that percentage, we would like to see it at 40s, of course. The other one get up. But free throws, he's going to the basket very strong. He's getting on the line, and if he wants to continue to get the respect and the calls, listen, officials are human. You're going to put a guy on the line. He starts clunk, clunk. They're not putting him there, no matter who he is.
But did the Knicks draft RJ thinking that he could grow into that role as a three-point shooter? And can you let him grow into that role when you need to win games and the guy is shooting 36% from three?
I hope they didn't draft him thinking to make him a three-point shooter. He's got to be serviceable. When they drafted him, you think back, everybody can redraft and things like that. He not a three-point shooter, but he freak athlete. Everybody wanted him after Zion. He was the guy. Different coach, different regime now. So it's really difficult to say why did they draft him. Better question: where does he really fit now or going forward? I like the improvement. I like the ferociousness. I like what I see. But I'm going to tell you something right now, Mike. Do not be surprised if he is traded in the offseason.
Okay. I'll keep an eye on that. But the two
I don't
guys,
want him to
Mike,
be, but he might not fit the role that he really needs to your point, and it might be time to see what they can get.
the two guys that have gotten significant minutes in the rotation that we haven't mentioned at all this year are Alec Burks and also Reggie Bullock. Now, Alec Burks, Mike, you could say what you want. He was on Utah for 6-7 seasons, and then all of a sudden he was on 6 teams in 5 years. So that kind of scared me a little bit. But if you look at him this year, he's really been good, and he's really been clutch late in games.
He has, and missed some time early on, so had to work his way into the rotation and find a role for himself. But yeah, pleasant surprise. Here we go, yet another player comes into with Coach Thibodeau and has a resurgence. I mean, I'm loving that.
And Burks has been clutch late in games, which, to be quite honest with you, as much as we've sung the praises of Julius Randle, Orange Julius has not been clutch late in games. Can we be honest?
Absolutely. No, you're right.
And so, Burks has given them good minutes. So is Bullock. Listen, they've got and you and I talked about the point guard rotation. And what I think is really interesting, right now, Derrick Rose just a shade under 12 points a game. Emmanuel Quickley, 12 points a game. Elfrid Payton, 12 points a game. It's like no matter who it's almost like having the same player in there.
It's pretty unbelievable. And one has nothing to do with the other. I will absolutely say this right now. Disclaimer. But I can tell you this as a basketball coach. The most successful basketball team I coached on any level, we had four players, 15 points, between 15 and 12 points.
Wow.
12,
That's balanced.
13, 15. And on any given night, one could step up, whatever else. So when you see that kind of balance out of one position in the NBA, again, we're talking apples and oranges here, though, but guys are playing their role. And if somebody's not doing it, fine, take a seat, next man up.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to shift gears and get to your favorite team to discuss, Brooklyn Nets. Since we've been on the air last, they went out and acquired LaMarcus Aldridge. Mike, when is too much for this team? I mean, was too much when they got James Harden? Was it too much when they got Blake Griffin? Now they're collecting former All-Stars, like one every week, and now it's LaMarcus Aldridge. Then these guys want to turn around and wonder why, by fans and other guys in the league, they're perhaps the most hated villains in the NBA right now.
Absolutely. I mean, what kind of chemistry can you develop? All right, who knows? Who can you count on? Do guys have anything left in the tank? Who knows? But yeah, when you are bringing in, one after the other, and guys are just being pushed out, it's not fun.
It's not fun
as a fan. It doesn't give you any balance, and it doesn't give you anything to really root for. I mean, I know it's the new NBA, but come on.
Yeah, the thing is that what Sean Marks might not realize, Mike, in collecting these players, is that he's really putting an inordinate amount of expectations and pressure on this team. I mean, if you don't make the NBA Finals, I'll say it right now, this is an unqualified bust and disaster. Even if you make the NBA Finals, if you don't win it, that's kind of a bust right now.
I'm just worried about who's going to be playing for that. Who's showing up? Maybe he knows something we don't, where he's just able to get all these guys together and say, all right, if Kyrie flakes out, well, we got somebody else. And, again, we're not talking about positioning, but it's an all-star team plus in names. If Steve Nash can get them together with the help of his coaching staff and get them to the finals, yes, then he's reached what he should be in terms of expectations. It's enormous.
I mean, Kevin Durant, as we said earlier, never, ever plays anymore. There was supposed to be a sighting this week. He was supposed to play last night. I almost feel like Charlie Brown, Mike, with the football running up and kicking, and Lucy's pulling it away every time they tell me that that Durant is going to play.
So a good message here from my good buddy Chris Caputo. Mentioning our studio looks great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. He said, forget the big three. It'll be the big six. They'll all be healthy when the playoffs begin. Love it.
That's great. But you know what, Mike? Just to get serious for a second, we got to give some love to these role players on the Nets who have been in and out of this lineup. I mean, you've got guys like Luau Cabarro, who had the little dust up last night with Julius Randle late in the game. I mean, Here's a kid who was almost completely out of the rotation.
Yep.
And when he gets in there to play, he gives them good minutes. They've got this guy, Alize Johnson, that just showed up out of nowhere. I think they signed him off a G League roster. He's given them a good performance. I mean, Nick Claxton, my main man, I was on Claxton very early.
You wanted big minutes for him. 5
rebounds a game. 7.5 points a game in 19 minutes a game that he's playing right now. Tyler Johnson's giving them nice minutes. I mean, we never know now when Harden is going to be back. He's got a hamstring injury similar to the one that, hopefully not similar to the one that's going to keep him out that Durant has, is going to keep him out for 2 months. I mean, the whole thing. Jeff Green, who you mentioned.
I'm a big fan of Jeff Green because he's a professional player. I'm going to call him a kid because he's a kid to me, but out of Georgetown. He's had a great career in the league, and all he does is come in and play hard, keeps his mouth shut. And like you said, these are the guys who they're going to have to step in at some point because the old guard here, they're breaking down, or who's showing up.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Green, 41% from three-point, 49% on field goal percentage. And then you've got Joe Harris, Mike, who nobody ever talks about. This guy is probably still the best three-point shooter, pure shooter in the game. Out of 51 games for the Nets this year, how many has Joe Harris played?
I'm going to say 51.
51% field goal percentage. 48% from downtown. Where are you going to beat that?
You can't. And I just hope that the team doesn't fall in love with all the star power of the other players and at his expense, because what do shooters need? Shots, and they need rhythm. And if you're not getting the consistent minutes or whatever else, or you're in, you're out, you're trying to fit other guys in, you're not getting your rhythm.
Let me surf back to the Knicks for just a minute, Mike. What is a successful season this year for the Knicks? I mean, we've talked about the jostling for playoff position. Do they need to get in that 4-5 matchup and actually win a series for you to consider it a successful season?
To win it, no. I think if they can get in it, I think that's a very, very successful season. Win one, I think that's gravy then from there. But, this many games into a season where they are relevant, playing hard, and we're talking about it, it's already a success to some point. But, yeah, I mean, gosh, if they can avoid any of those play-in scenarios and just get in there, it's an unmitigated success.
If they get in one of the playoff play-in matchups and get bounced after 2 games, is that an unqualified bust to you?
I don't think so. Bust? I don't know. I'm very lenient.
Wow, you're too lenient.
Yeah, I know. I guess I'm in a good mood. I've been on vacation for a week and a half. It's difficult. But hey, listen, as we're kind of coming towards the end here, basketball, as you mentioned, is my go-to. But at this time of year, when we're thinking about potential Knicks and Nets matchups, and we're talking about players and whatever, it's great to have that back.
Yeah. So we have to talk some Final Four, Mike. And Saturday night, listen, I know you were probably out at some rum bar.
No, I did that. I was able to watch.
No, you didn't see any of this. But Saturday night was the game of probably at least a decade. And you know me, I'm not given to hype. That game Saturday night, Gonzaga against UCLA, was probably, not even probably, I'm going to get rid of probably, was the best college basketball game I've seen in at least 15, 20 years. Top, minimum.
Absolutely. Tremendous offense, solid defense. Now, they put a lot of points up on the board, both teams, but just like a heavyweight fight going back and forth. And when you have overtime, overtime was almost anticlimactic because it was like, you know what, this game can't stop. It has to keep going.
Exactly.
How it ended was kind of a disappointment because, a shot like that. My man Chris Caputo, who's watching right now, who says major onions. When I was coaching Chris, he hit a shot like that to win a game back in high school. That's another thing for another time. But in overtime, when you have it going back and forth like that, to end it like that, I would have preferred something else. But yeah, best game 10, 15 years for sure.
But you know what, Mike? You mentioned it to piggyback onto your point. It was 81-81 at the end of regulation. Now, usually when you see that type of score in a college basketball game now, it's because teams aren't playing the defense they should.
Right.
But those two teams played the defense they should, but both teams were just that good offensively. And I have to tell you, if Leon Rose was not watching Johnny Juzang and on the phone with his agent or offering to be his agent, he's dropping the ball, no lie.
Absolutely. And big props to Mick Cronin coming in. 11 seed playing game, weren't playing well at the beginning of the season. This guy, the legend that is the UCLA coaching job that he took over, just unbelievable. And he said it right at the end of the game. He said, how could I be disappointed with this team? How could I be? They did everything and more.
He did a magnificent job, Mick Cronin. I got to give him all the credit in the world. Not just what he did with the team, Mike, coming out of a play-in scenario, a first four scenario, to make the Final Four. But given Gonzaga, who came in undefeated, that kind of game, turning Johnny Juzang from a jump shooter into a scorer, Mick Cronin, a fantastic job. Can you imagine a Garden where the two marquee names are Capo Caco and Johnny Juzang? Those are names with some cachet, Mike. As George Costanza would say, it's got cachet up the yin-yang,
That
baby.
is a media dream right there. Absolutely. Great. Most definitely. And then our final game, listen, was Gonzaga out of gas? Yeah, probably. But listen, Baylor had the size, the game plan, and just the execution to make an undefeated team look helpless.
Yeah, that game was not, and the funny part was last night was such a great sports night, and I'm trying to keep an eye on the Yankee game even though it was a blowout. I'm really trying to key into the Met game, and I'm really trying to keep an eye on Knicks Nets, but I know that at 9 o'clock I want to be in front of Gonzaga. Okay, so I go to Gonzaga, I flip it on. It's 11-1. I said to myself, nah, that's not right. They got the wrong score on there. Put the right score on there. I'm yelling at the TV. I'm saying 11-1, and Gonzaga, honestly, was never in the game.
They're down 19 points 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah, and Grant Hill, I thought, had an absolutely brilliant point on that broadcast. He talked about the play with Christian Laettner. And that game was a quarterfinal game, Mike.
Yep.
So they had 5 days to come down from that high before they had to play again. And Gonzaga had to play 2 days later and sort of come down off that high of beating UCLA in overtime.
Outstanding point. And I wasn't a big fan of having Grant Hill in the booth because I like the two-man booth myself. But, yeah, he did an outstanding job, and that's a great point.
Yeah. No, I thought that was outstanding. And honestly, listen, was last night's game kind of anticlimactic? We all want to put it on. Gonzaga was still coming off a high. Gonzaga was exhausted. But listen, we have to give Baylor a ton of credit.
27-2 going into that game. I mean, that's no that's no schlock team there.
And I mean, you look at the big guys they were running out there, Mike. They had depth up front. Their two big guys were in foul trouble in the first half. They had to sit them both down. And here's a couple other guys to come in and take their place.
7-footers, 7'3", yeah, and just bulky shot blockers. And they ran offense well. Gonzaga went to 2-3 at one point, and Bill Raftery, great point, former coach. He's very basic. Let's just get somebody on the foul line. And what did they do? They threw the ball in the foul line 3 times. Baylor hits 3 jump shots. Time to come out of that.
But you want to talk about tenacious defense, both up front and even the guys in the backcourt. Every time a guy on Gonzaga dribbled, he had a guy like in his uniform. I mean, it was
perfect
crazy.
Game plan. Perfect.
Coach Drew beats Coach Few for the title. Baylor ends up 28-2. Congratulations to them. We've got to wrap with that. I want to thank everybody here at Drake Media Studios. Our producer extraordinaire, Joe DeFelice. Great job tonight by Joe.
Fantastic, and we got so much great feedback. Thank you, everybody who was watching, and got some great comments. John Reynolds again, and Chris Caputo, and Fred. If I say your name wrong, I apologize. Empson, I believe.
Fred Empson.
Fred Empson.
Oh,
okay.
Ready Freddie is in the house.
Tim Carey, Marie Galazzo Altamari, thank you for watching as well. And then we said John Reynolds, Joseph Teresa, Patrick Salvatore. Anybody I missed, I apologize, but we will be back in here in a couple of weeks, bigger and better, and we can't wait to have you back.
I can't find my sheet, folks, so let me see if I can do the credits off the top of my head. Our theme music, Spot On, is by Mr. Scott Daly. Our logo art is by Valerie Hanatic, the Jets fanatic. Voiceover artist is Archie Snowden. As I mentioned, Joe DeFelice is our producer. We're here at the Great Drake Media Studios. We'll be back very soon. We want to thank John Santamaria for hopping on the video with us. Mike Guidone, great job as always. For everyone here at Spot On Sports, this is Mike Trezza reminding you to remember the words of the late, great Jimmy V. No matter what your goal is in life, never, ever give up. We'll see you next time on Spot On Sports.